Hi policy team, this is Katie. I'm going to tell you today a little bit about how to run an effective topicality argument when you're on negative. So let's go to the Topicality NSDA PDF that we have in the shared folder. Let's go to the first 1NC shell. This is on page 3. If you look at it, the tag says interpretation, substantial curtailment is at least 13%. Even if it's arbitrary, there are fixed boundaries on its possible meaning. This is something that you can run, for example, if when in cross-examination, during the first cross-examination, after they read their plan, you ask, what is your definition of substantial curtailment? And they say either it cannot be quantifiable, or they say something like 5%, or, what have you. So either if they can't nail down that specific number or percentage, or they have a percentage that's less than 13%, you could potentially bring out this card. This is your decision. I mean, obviously, I think this is kind of foolish because where did 13% come from? It says here that it was a court decision, but I mean, it's up to your discretion. This is just to give you an example. So you read this tag, that the interpretation of substantial curtailment is at least 13%, etc., etc. You say it's from Uter 77, which is a formal court decision between Shell Oil and the appellant Norwood Brooks, and then you go into reading the card. You don't have to read the site, obviously, and we talked about just reading the underlined part, so this is a really good example. You just read a substantial curtailment of the employer's overall operations at the particular situs in question. Whether there is a substantial curtailment is resolved by application of a number of established criteria to the facts of the particular case. There are a few fixed boundaries for the meaning of the term substantial in this context. The attempts by other courts to devise a formula based upon a percentage of reduction in normal production or operations by which a line delineating substantial from non-substantial could be established have varied from 50% of normal production in early decisions to as low as 20% decline in business activity and subsequent decisions. Appellant argues a 16% reduction in overall personnel constitutes a substantial curtailment of normal employer operations. Jurisdictions outside the state of Washington, considering the same question, have varied in their conclusions, ranging from a low of perhaps 13% to a high of over 50% in personnel reduction as being indicative of substantial curtailment of employment operations. So therefore, if you decide you want to use a standard, you're going to say, Judge, ideally we would like 50%, but, we're going to be conservative. We're going to give AF the benefit of the doubt and say, listen, if you can just meet 13%, you'd be topical, but you can't. So, sorry, even by the lowest standards set by this court decision, they don't meet it. And then at the end of that, what you're going to say is, Judge, and maybe you want to do a little bit of reasoning as far as why this particular court decision, this one is really not within the realm of cybersecurity or curtailment of surveillance. It's more of, if I'm not mistaken, just reading the tag, I'm not really reading the block, is about employment labor disputes, which is not related, and of course a good AF team is going to pick that out immediately, but just for the sake of argument, that's what you would do, that's what you would read. You would read the tag, a little bit of the site, like who it is, where it comes from, and then read through the underlined parts, and then at the end you're going to say verbatim, Judge, topicality is a voter or a voting issue in this round. It ensures fairness and clash and provides a bright line for the debate. Without it, we might as well be arguing who makes the better cookies, my mom or this kid's mom, or something like that. Essentially, the point is that topicality is a voter. You have to say that. You have to say that. You need to say that it ensures fairness and clash, and that it provides a bright line for the debate. Now, what is fairness and clash, and what is a bright line? Fairness and clash means that you do not allow the debate to go outside of a particular boundary. Kind of what we were talking about, like the topicality is kind of the fence of the cow pen. Everything inside the cow pen is what the AF argues. Everything inside the cow pen is what the AF argues. Outside the cow pen is what the neg argues. And it ensures fairness because you can tell what is fair and what's abuse in a round. You can't do that if you don't know what you're arguing. If you don't know what you're arguing, anything goes, right? So that's why it provides fairness and clash. So you can determine what is fair for each person to argue, but at the same time there is clash. You are actually arguing something. The other thing is the bright line. Bright line means it's literally a bright line. It's the line in the sand between which AF stands on one side and the negative stands on the other side. So it's literally what you want to say. Judge, topicality is a voter, ensures fairness and clash, and provides a bright line for the debate. The end is just kind of a fun sort of stylistic thing. Without it, we could be arguing what type of laundry detergent gets your socks whiter, or what's better to order at Starbucks, a pumpkin spice latte or a mango black tea. Whatever you want to say, but something along those lines to just say this is why it's important, because without it we could literally be arguing anything. So that's what you need to keep in mind when running Topicality. Every single time you always have to say it's a voter. You always. And if you do not provide a definition of Topicality right off the bat, affirmative is going to say that you accepted their definition of whatever word it was in question. So you need to let them know right off the bat that this is your definition as far as this particular word in Topicality. And remember, Topicality is not like, you can't just say the AF was untopical for the whole resolution. You have to say they were untopical on the word substantially. They were untopical on the word curtailment. They were untopical on the word United States, or the phrase United States federal government, because their plan goes through China or Russia or something. They were untopical on the word domestic. This is going to be a big one. They're going to be untopical on the word domestic because they are saying that we want to substantially curtail surveillance of Russian communications. Well, that's not topical because you're not talking about domestic surveillance of the United States' citizens or communications or what have you. And they're going to talk about it's being a possessive, the word it's in the resolution referring to the United States. So once again, reinforcing that domestic piece. Anyways, it's a brief tutorial on Topicality. As always, if you have any questions, let me know.